Okay, so I've seen a number of videos on YouTube that are tutorials for how to combine different objects together using SDFs and blur them together. But usually they rely on quite hacky methods which aren't that great. So I'm going to show you sort of the best way, or the simplest way that I've found to achieve this in Blender 5.1. Okay, so let's keep this simple. Let's add a simple cube. 2 by 2 by 2, that's fine. Let's add an icosphere. Move that over there. Let's add a third object just for fun. Let's add let's add a torus there as well. Okay, so we've got some objects we want to join together. Right, let's use the cube as the base object, so new geometry nodes. And we want to now bring the object information for this into geometry nodes, these other meshes, so click and drag, set to relative, let's click and drag that, set to relative. Okay, so let's quickly hide those and we can just see if we join geometry here, we can bring them in like so, fine, okay, let's delete that. Okay, so we'll use the mesh to geometry nodes option. So mesh, operations, and then mesh to SDF grid. Cool. Let's take that mesh in there. Let's bring the voxel size out so that we can control it over here. And same with the bandwidth. Okay. Now Shift D to duplicate. Bring that in. That in. That in. Do it again. Cool. So how do we combine this to make it into a mesh, into one unified piece? Okay, well let's first of all test it on one piece. So let's go volume, operations, and then grid to mesh. So you can click, drag that out. Geometry, and now you see we've got the cube. It's rather low density, so let's change this to 0.1 and let's change the threshold to 0.01. There, nice and sharp. Cool. Okay, so that's cool, but how do we combine these now? Because if you just click and drag, it's swapping them out. So this is actually very simple. If you go with the math node and then go to, let's go with, see, we can combine them. Now it's red because it's red because the normals are flipped. So what you want to do, flip faces, so under mesh and operations, flip faces, there you go. So if you want to combine them all, ta-da, you got 3 things in there. Now let's talk about smoothing. So we probably want to put the voxels up to 0.05, just makes things nice and sharper. And now we go into here and go to smooth minimum, and also smooth minimum there. Okay, as you saw, they slightly expanded, which is what we want to do. So what we want to do is increase the bandwidth. For some reason, second one there. So if we increase the bandwidth, see it starts getting sharp and much more clear. So you see they're already blended because there's already this distance function activated. So here you can see you can control them separately. Now, okay, so the bandwidth is an important factor and you need to have a wide enough bandwidth in order to accommodate any smoothing you've got. And this is because the way that Blender does SDF grids in the background is they basically make a skin around the object that's so many cells wide, and when you start combining things like this and you start blending them, you'll often find that you start going outside of the bandwidth, in which case weird things start to happen. So let's drop it down and you see it starts getting larger and the smoothing stops working until, finally it doesn't work at all. Okay, so this is good for combining, but what if you want to cut things away or do other Boolean operations, such as intersect? Well, you can actually use the math node again, and instead what you can do is multiply by -1. And you might need to change this. You see, it's now cutting out both of these from the cube, both the shapes from the cube. You see this bit that's floating here? I assume that's because the bandwidth isn't quite big enough. There you go, make it a bit bigger and it smooths out. And you can also change the smoothing on these as well. Cool. And if we want to do an intersect, then you can duplicate this and drop it on here, so you're multiplying it by -1, and now you've got this. It's completely ignoring the torus because it's not part of this intersection, so yeah, it's being ignored. You can smooth that as well.